Hello, everybody, and welcome to ABM Answered, the 7-minute demand generation / account-based marketing video series. I'm here with Matt, who is totally capable of introducing himself in a second. But to give a short overview of the concept, Matt, in this case, will have 7 minutes to answer 7 questions all about account-based marketing and demand generation. Or that's what we hope for, kind of concise answers, but it hasn't worked that way so far. These questions have come from or have been adapted based on the data we have collected from mixed reality rooms, where over 1,000 marketers have gone through and stated what their biggest struggles are at the moment with demand generation and account-based marketing. So we have plotted out these statements and struggles on a stem diagram, which I will beautifully and visually pull up on the screen afterwards. And we will be flipping a coin at the end of every question to determine whether we go left or right down that stem diagram. So yes, Matt, I will hand it over to you to give an intro.
Thank you. Incredibly excited, slightly nervous with time limits and everything, but you know, I'm ready for the challenge. Hi, I'm Matt. I'm the founder of Rocky. We're a content feedback platform. So problem we're solving is content measurement is hard and content optimization is hard. We're making it easy by blending audience feedback with all the traditional analytics data. And my background before that is in doing loads of ABM and strategy and campaigns for corps and stuff. So excited to get back in the ABM seat.
Awesome. Right. Okay. I am flipping the coin and it has landed on heads, which takes us to problem 1, which is actually, I promise, not placed or fixed. Problem 1 was measuring the ROI of our campaigns remains a challenge. I know this question came in from a demand gen marketer specifically. If that helps, maybe we tailor it to that. But how would you measure the ROI of a demand gen campaign in your experience?
I suppose the first thing I would look to do is understanding what average deal size is when you're going into those target accounts. Like, so, okay, are we running 1-to-1 ABM or are we running like 1-to-few? Obviously, there's variables in there in terms of how much you personalize. But first of all, the key thing is what is the size of the prize? If it's 1-to-1, you should be looking at high value accounts like high 6-figure, even 7-figure deals, because you really have to throw the energy into that. And then it's essentially kind of working your way back off of that cost base where you're like, well, how much investment do I need in terms of a dedicated person on that account who's aligned with the sales team? Like, what does the content need to look like? What is the messaging, personalization? You kind of need to bundle up these mini marketing campaigns against the size of the price. And that kind of just justifies how, like, is it worth throwing that investment into it? And like, is it worth doing? Because if you're only selling 30, 40 grand products, don't do ABM. It's not for you. Like, it just doesn't really work. The difficult thing is what happens in the middle in terms of measurement. Are we nailing it? We've been running this thing for a year. Deal cycles could be really long, depending on contracts, stuff like that. So, you need good insights in the middle as well when you're measuring, not just engagement data. That doesn't mean anything. Get feedback from your users. Try and get more like survey data, insights from the accounts, from sales. You need like a solid qualitative view to be like, look, let's keep going for it, and it's justifying the ongoing cost. Super tough.
Fantastic. And what tools would you use? So obviously Rocky would be kind of perfect for this. Like how does that kind of tie in with capturing ROI and monitoring? Is it like sentiment analysis? Is that the right term I've used?
We can pick all that up as well. There's 2 sets of tools that I would use to measure the campaign on an ongoing basis. I would still look at engagement data. The challenge you've got with engagement data is not really telling you much because you've got such a tiny sample. If you're running 1-to-1, 1-to-few, you might only have 5 people visit your little website. Mm-hmm. They've just sort of clicked around and you're like, that was fun, cool. You're like, you can't base many good decisions off the back of that. So that's where you can blend in. I mean, first of all, that could tell you your targeting might be right. You could have like IP tracking or like something like a demand base or dream data, which can track, oh, okay, I know target company 1 has visited the site. They had a look around and then they left. Cool. That gives you like top level engagement data. Blend it with qual and see if you can get feedback on the content. Like, you know, was this content helpful? Did it solve a problem for you? Did it kind of meet the needs that you were going for? So I would look at some of those bits and pieces as well to measure it.
Awesome. Another question. So this is a follow-on question, and you can already see how this is overrun the 7 minutes. But a question I got in from an episode I recorded, I think it was 2 days ago, and it was actually we were tackling ABM from a BDR's perspective. His question was, genuinely, what is the MQL to SQL ratio that marketing expect to happen? So, for example, if marketing actually pass sales 100 leads, and they've just got to hit their MQL targets at some companies and stuff, and I think we're getting better at tying it into revenue, like collectively as a group, sales and marketing. But like in your experience, what percentage of leads on average do these companies that operate ABM expect to convert from MQLs to SQLs?
So like there's a weird like qualifier here is depends on the type of ABM. First
Okay.
of all, if you're running a super tight one-to-one, one-to-few campaign and you've got someone who's a hand raiser, as in they've said, I want to book a demo, I'm open to a conversation,
Yeah,
that should be really high. Like, it could be 1 in 4 because you've done a lot of personalized content and engagement into those accounts.
for
If you're
sure.
talking like programmatic ABM, which to be honest is another word for just demand gen, you're just running a demand gen campaign against a target audience, like that changes rapidly. And there's two examples I'll give you. I did an analysis for one of my clients this year. Their conversion rate on that to opportunity, 5%, maybe 6%, super low.
Programmatic, sorry. Yeah,
Like programmatic ABM, which is just demand gen with a different name.
might as well
Five
spray and pray at that point.
Exactly, and it doesn't work. And then the other side of it is where you've actually got high intent account stuff. So people who are actually going on the website booking a demo, like who are just going through normal channels because customer behaviors change so much. We don't care for getting content, giving away contact information. I'll call you when I'm ready. Those will convert like 15% plus in terms of going straight through to opportunity. So it is variable depending on type of ABM, but yeah, there's a couple of benchmarks to play with.
So at high end, we're looking at maybe 25% for like resource heavy tier one accounts. Like let's get those conversations going at a programmatic level, like a 5-ish%, somewhere in between that.
Yeah, and it's dependent on your definition of MQL. I'd like to define an MQL these days not as a contact in a database, but someone who's actually said, I want to talk to you and, take things further.
Question 2 is the problem that came in is personalization at scale in ABX is resource intensive. So you kind of touched upon this already with the if it's at one-to-one or one-to-many, but yeah, what strategies or tools would you kind of enforce is a strong word, bring in, I guess, to kind of streamline that?
Yeah, and like the question kind of is completely bang on because you've got to be aware of the impact that personalization is going to have at each stage. At one-to-one, you need to do it. You can't just go in there with generic content. You need to be like solving the pain point of that account. You need to have done your research and got insight as to what that is. It is worth the investment at that level because you should be going for high value deals. At like a programmatic ABM level, I genuinely think the level of personalization is much more around like common challenges that brings groups together. So it might be a vertical. So you're like, look, we're going into the legal industry. How is, I don't know, X impacting the legal industry? That's what the content should be doing. And you kind of just take it as a pyramid at that broader level, find commonalities that brings groups together. At ABM light level, you might find a group of companies, organizations who have very similar traits. That's the level of personalization there. But like, I wouldn't be going crazy on tools and things that like IP like detection and like stuff like that because it genuinely has very little impact and it's very expensive. Just because it said hi Bob when you landed on a website, did it make you buy the product? No, like it's just a bit weird and intrusive. So you've got to be clear on personalization should be just good content dedicated to that group or account.
Solid answer. And what is like an example of tier one content that you would send across is, and like how would you personalize it?
Yeah, so I can give you an example for that. Like we ran these types of campaigns for Microsoft. So we were trying to get them into essentially financial services accounts, and we are constantly on the lookout for insights that can be super relevant to that account. At group level, you can go, look, all our financial services is struggling with X. Their challenges are probably going to be similar, but they might have a very different specific thing. So that's where like I would hunt down personalization, like has a major stakeholder like being in the press, in the news, ever talking about X, Y, or Z. They went to a conference once. They did a talk at some sort of summit once, talking about what they're doing next. get super close to that account, be super personalized, and it could be manifest itself in your introduction, how your sales team go in there. But if you're really confident with the problem or the insight you have in that account, go in there with content, which is like, hey, we know you talk about this a lot. We are superb for this. Like, here's proof of it. Here's our case studies. Here's our evidence. We should talk, type thing.
Okay, that's banging. That's because I wanted an answer to that question as well. So that's superb. Question 3. So this actually was pudding based off another episode that we did, but uninspired follow-ups from sales ruining all the work marketing has done. So I think this was said out of kind of frustration, but yeah, is there any way or anything that in your experience you've done that has like salvaged a deal?
That's a super spicy comment, isn't it? Do you know what? There's like, I'm going to defend sales slightly here, because if that sounds, as a marketer, I'm sort of going on the wrong team here, but like, I'm going to kind of defend sales here because like it's such a like boring 101. There has to be marketing and sales alignment, but you really need to know how your sales team would approach that account. What's their strategy? Like, what tools they use? What do they like to use as an opener? They will have a set routine. You need to make sure you fit in with that routine because they're the ones that are going to go and make the money. I hate to say it. Like, marketing's there to drive engagement, raise awareness of a problem. Sales there to go and close it. Like, we have to kind of know what their sales process looks like and make sure we fit in with it as best as possible. If we disagree with it, like, base it on data and evidence. But like, yeah, I wouldn't feel too confident about telling a salesperson who knows far more than me how to do their job.
And I respect that a lot, and I can see it too because I do a lot of sales as well. But so start with sales, and it's more like marketing. How can we facilitate? How can we support you rather than, hey, this is how we want you to approach it as well.
Bring word of alignment, but you've got to agree on what's the message, the strategy, how we talk to that account. And if one team starts doing something different from the other team, then yeah, you get that friction, don't you?
For sure. Question 4. So we've gone down the path on the left. So that's tails. Content creation for ABX lacks consistency and relevance. I don't know who this is coming from. It sounds like it probably could have come in from a salesperson that's been through the experience. But anyway, I guess we kind of touched upon it earlier as well. So with what you said about finding out people being in the news and things like that, how do you keep up to date with finding or like keeping content relevant?
So this is the interesting thing is like, for all the good strategy at the beginning and the insight gathering, and you'd be like, look, the story in this account is, I don't know, data. We think we need to talk about data to this account. Cool. That could be the story in January. It could be a completely different story in February. So what insight are you using? What feedback loops have you got to change and pivot when the priority in that target account changes as well? So it might be a new MD, it might be a new strategy, comes in and goes, look, we're not worried about data anymore, we're worried about connectivity now. And you're like, okay, who knew that? Did anyone know that? And you're running your campaign ongoing. So like, the tips here are like, you need an ongoing feedback loop. First of all, from sales, what are your customers saying? What are the audience saying? First of all, again, I'm going to plug Rocky, but like, plug Rocky into your content and find out how it's being engaged with, what are the priorities in that account, how they rate things, and pivot accordingly. And hopefully that gets rid of the problem of, was the content relevant? Was it, specific to that account? Is by continually collecting insight in various ways to make sure you're doing the right job.
All right, question 5. We'll hit with this one. Making sure ABM personalization doesn't feel intrusive while giving sales freedom. Well, I feel like all of these questions actually today have like followed a similar theme. So maybe if you've got anything to add to that. How do you strike the right balance between personalization and respecting the prospect's privacy, I guess?
Yeah, like, that is actually a really good challenge. It's a really interesting challenge that we've had with some of the stuff we did before, because you're like, okay, I might have a really good insight and I know exactly what this particular prospect is worried about, but you don't want to go and shout it at them because then it feels creepy that you're like, hey, I know you really struggle with X, and they'll be like, wow, that's weird. But like, I think the strategy is to try and raise it up a level and keep it at a, like, we know that, I don't know, maybe the account struggles with this. You don't want to ever like go down to an individual level. You can know what an individual's problem is, but not necessarily say, we know you individual have this problem. You can raise it up to like, we know the business is struggling with X. That just looks like you've done your good homework, as opposed to, I looked at your entire Twitter feed and looked at everything you've ever said and then played it back to you. Don't do that. That's creepy. People don't like it. So, like, I think that's probably the best thing I could say on that.
Okay, we had a guest on who said, and he said it worked. It pulled off successfully. I've tried a lot of these different methods as well, but it was a case of he found out on Twitter that the CMO or something, CIO that he was targeting owned like a pig farm. Was it a pig farm? It was some bizarre animal farm. I don't know. He used that in the opener, and then that sparked the conversation, and then they got into like the work related stuff. But I can definitely see how it can go one of two ways, right?
Yeah.
So do you lean towards like not going like let's keep the personal life out of it, keep it strictly work, or
I've tried it as well. Like I was trying to get into an account and I spotted that the guy was a Miami Heat fan. And I'm an Orlando Magic fan, so technically a
so
competitor.
that's tragic. Yeah.
I tried the whole like, hey, like you're our rivals, and he was like, mate, I'm not going to talk about it. And I was like, okay. So it might work, but like that's the thing. Like if it works once or it doesn't work once, doesn't mean you don't try it. If someone has a certain like and has the maybe there's a confidence with certain salespeople where you're like, no, I think I can land it if I find this thing that we can align on early on, then sure. Like that's why I'm not a salesperson. I probably don't have the confidence to do it.
Right. Question 6: finding and targeting the right accounts. So is the statement, but my question, because I'm curious, is how many do you pick? Like, do you base it off of how many team members you've got, like how much resource you've got? What typically is what determines how many you pick and how many from each section? Is it like 20% of resources goes to tier 1? Is it 50% goes to tier 2? I don't know. It's open-ended. I'll let you take it away.
It goes back to the ROI question where like some ABM programs will have a sophistication where they're constantly moving people between tiers, and they kind of base a lot of that on stuff like intent data. So if you've got a good intent provider, you could be like, look, someone is surging on a topic, and then coupled with that, they're surging with interest in our website. I'd always start with first party data. So what is that flow of people who are vaguely interested in us, how often they visit us? Also in your CRM, who are the big companies that look like them that you think I can go win more people who already look like our existing customer? Don't make it complicated in a new industry or vertical. Find people who already work with you and are satisfied with you. That's the most obvious one to go with. In terms of budgeting it for it, again, it's dependent on the prize. If that top prize is huge and you're like, okay, let's throw some money at this, let's get a dedicated marketer, team, content, whatever it is, then go for it. It's difficult. Like I think intent data is a mixed bag because it could be based on late signals, like oh, someone researched X and you're like, I don't know who that person is, whether they're a big decision maker. So you've got to be careful with some of that. Also speak to sales. If there's like obvious connections, introductions, it's actually probably quicker than trying to guess from a number that's been provided by a provider who want to make you spend a lot of money on data.
No, for sure. And how do you find those companies that are similar? I know like Sales Navigator, for example, or even Apollo and other tools will suggest, oh, companies like this. But like, how do you approach finding companies similar to your clients, like Rocky, for example?
Yeah, you might start with something as simple as like desktop research, because actually like targeting is super like I'll use Rocky as an example actually, but targeting is super specific. It's not just like a big firmographic and demographic, and you know, it's mid-sized companies with 400 people in. Like it's got to be more detailed than that. So like our targeting, we know, is actually mid-sized tech who have like a content team of probably at least 10 people, which means they're generally quite advanced in terms of content marketing, and also with a web traffic of at least 30, 40,000 uniques a month. So we have to get quite, because we know that works. We know those clients have a really good experience with us. So I'd look beyond your normal firmographic, demographic, like persona, like stuff. I would be like, well, there's got to be something else here that is really specific, because then you can tighten that account and go, it might be something like website traffic or something like an install base for tech. And you're like, oh, we sell really well into, I don't know, Fujitsu accounts or whatever. So find something different, and then you could be like, okay, that's based on good experiences that we have in, well, good customers we already have.
Okay, yeah. So it sounds like even at Rocky, that planning stage, like to get all that information and find those perfect accounts, does just you invest quite a bit of time into it, and it's worth doing that.
Yeah, 100%. Otherwise, you said it earlier, it's spray and pray. I could target everyone who's a mid-sized tech company. Be like, do you want a content tool? And some of them are struggling to make content in the first place, let alone understanding if it works. So I don't want to talk to them, and they don't want to talk to me. So let's not do it.
Why waste the time? So did you take an ABM kind of approach yourself?
So I've had to like cut that down, and I kind of only focus on the regions I can service, like the UK and US. So like it's just cutting into that bigger slice of pie. So I'm aware of it. I still don't think I'm perfect at it, but it's really difficult to gauge what does perfection look like because you're always chasing the right numbers. So
last question, we've made it, kind sir. Problem is finding new and innovative ways to cut through the B2B noise while adhering to budget constraints. So what's, I guess, the question? What's the most like kind of creative ways you've seen or are seeing at the moment to approach ABM or even demand generation, I guess, that stand out?
That's a tough one. I think the biggest thing I'd say is like avoid the digital noise as much as possible. Just running ads into an account is next to useless. Like display ads, for example, next to useless. Just I wouldn't even spend the money because it just gives you weird engagement data. You think things are going well, but no one's bought anything, especially a product at that margin at such a high price. Like the best thing I heard recently is an agency I work with who do a lot of ABM stuff and have a connected BDR team, just doing like DMs, like really personalized, like, hey, we know your account, and like trying to open up that conversation. And they had like stuff like, look, we want to do like a hackathon or like a party with the developers where we do a hackathon and show you how our tech works and stuff like that. You've got to get super creative, create experiences. Like it goes back to the whole ABX thing. That's obviously a fashionable term at this point. But like, I'd go offline and just do stuff that people aren't expecting because digital is absolutely like it's completely packed. There's not much room to make a different noise from the very busy market.
I think you've answered that pretty well, considering it is a tough question. That's it. Thanks so much for joining. So, in terms of prizes at the moment, as I said in the last episode, we were giving out, we were like flipping a coin. It was randomly choosing one. But the feedback we've got from giving out space goods has been exceptional. So I will send you some space goods.
I'm sold. Send me the space
Amazing. Goods. My last question is, do you have a question or a topic you think we should ask our next guest?
Yeah.
Or a problem, yes, that you experience.
What are what are the like newest and innovative ways or approaches you're seeing to get insights on a target account? Would really love to know because you're like, there's got to be someone who's got some crazy tool or tag or something that's like, I know everything about this account.
Someone must have cracked it. What are your views on intent data?
I'd separate intent data into two parts. I'd have intent data of like I can buy from a demand base or Bombora, one of them lot. That sounds really disparaging, but one of them lot. And it's kind of like, okay, I know companies that are vaguely interested in a topic, and I know accounts that are interested. Like, yeah, okay. We ran campaigns with intent and without intent data and saw literally no difference in the uptake in terms of like engagement rate or conversion rate. So that was going back like 3 or 4 years ago, and I doubt it's got much better. I might be wrong. Someone can come and tell me that's completely wrong. I never got the additional cost and investment for all of that, and to see if it worked or not. It felt like a really good thing for big companies like that to sell. First party intent, if you've got something like Dream Data or Hockey Stack on your site and you're tracking, even like lead forensics to a lesser extent, and you're tracking who's visiting your site, how often, that's interesting because they're researching you. Like they've probably heard about you on another channel, on LinkedIn, referred somewhere, whatever it may be. They're continually researching and you're seeing which pages they're going on, and you've got contacts starting to appear in your CRM. That's interesting. That's really intent that I'm interested about. It's down to that company then to decide, well, what's the point where we pick up a phone or hope that they inquire. That's kind of depending on your product and situation. But that's interesting data, not the other stuff.
For sure. And like you said, it's super expensive. It's not cheap.
It's not like a golden egg, and it never has been. It's like it's the weird obsession that has been really well sold into people who want to do ABM, and I'm like, I've still never seen it genuinely do better stuff than we could have done with just good advertising to a good target accounts.
In a way, they've done extremely well selling it in. Like that is a good marketing case study in itself of how they created this the market for intent data.
Yeah.
Fair play to them. Right. Anyway, thanks again for joining, Matt. Appreciate it.
No worries. Thank you, dude.